Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to Common English Mistakes. Don't just learn, improve. So today we're going to look at a few different issues talking about family. The main one is a classic Spanish, Italian, Portuguese speaking mistake because English is different to how it is in those languages. However, if you speak a different native language, it's still going to be useful because we're going to look at the natural and unnatural things to say when talking about family. We'll also look at some things called binomial pairs, which feature with this, some pronunciation, and finish with some vocabulary and phrasal verbs related to family. Anyway, the mistake is up here. Do you have any sons? So just pause the video, try to correct the sentence. And well done if you said, do you have any children? Or maybe, do you have any kids? So obviously when we ask this question, we're asking about boys and girls, sons and daughters, and we need to say children. Unlike in Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, where you just pluralize the male family member. Again, be careful of anything which is different in your language because it's likely you're going to make the mistake in English. This question often confuses older students because they say, children, I'm 60 years old. Even if it's the case and they say, yes, I have a son and a daughter, but they are all grown up, meaning adults, the question is still the same. If you're speaking to somebody younger, you could also say, do you have any kids? And there you are specifically referring to children, younger people. So that's for children. It's the same idea, and I do see the same mistake talking about parents. Make sure you say your mum and dad, or your parents, or a nicer word for this, quite informal, your folks are very nice. So any of those are perfectly natural. When it comes to grandparents, because it's quite a lot to say your grandma and granddad, we generally just say grandparents. Much more natural to talk about them collectively. And again, make sure you don't say this. Do you have any brothers? You can either say, do you have any brothers or sisters? Or do you have any siblings? However, I was talking to my housemate before we made this video, and we both agreed that we never actually really use this word. It's up to you, and it's certainly not wrong, but personally, I don't use it. Maybe for asking questions, but I would say it's very unnatural to say this. Your siblings are really funny. Sounds a bit too formal and just something a native speaker doesn't say. Moving on, instead of I went to my uncle's for lunch, make sure we say I went to my aunt and uncles, the brothers and sisters of your parents. With their children, there's no problem. A cousin can be male or female, so I don't see any mistakes. And lastly, with the children of your brothers and sisters, again, make sure you say I bought presents for my niece and nephew. Not just nephews, the male relative. So be careful if you're a Spanish, Italian, Portuguese speaker, because it's very easy to do what you do in your language in English and make a mistake. I've got the same sentences written here, but I've changed them slightly. Let's listen to me say them and think, do they sound okay? Your dad and mum seem nice. Do you have any sisters or brothers? I went to my uncle and aunts for lunch, and I bought presents for my nephew and niece. Hopefully, those sound a bit strange because they're what we call binomial pairs. Two words that we say together, usually with a conjunction and or, and they sound better in one order than the other, which sounds strange, unnatural, and is a mistake. The best example I can think of is if you said, I went to London and had chips and fish. Obviously, that would be a bit silly. Sounds much better to say fish and chips. And for the family examples, mum and dad brothers and sisters, aunt and uncle, and niece and nephew. The next thing is something I hear all nationalities do. These sentences technically aren't wrong, but two of them are very unnatural to the point I would say it's a mistake. So just look at the sentences, look at who says them, and think what they should say instead. And well done if you said mother, father, technically correct, something you might learn from a book or at school, but for the first two sentences, not natural at all. Much, much too formal. Generally, when kids are younger, they'll say mummy and daddy, in American English, mommy. Then when they get older, continuing into adult life, going to say mum and dad, American English, mom and dad. I've actually been saying this recently. I'm going to see my mum and dad next month. And then in more formal situations, or maybe talking a long time in the past, that's where you might use mother and father. I was thinking you might hear this in a radio interview, someone talking about their dad quite a long time in the past. I would say it's the same thing with grandparents, although probably less of an issue. When we're talking about them together, there's no problem. We just say grandparents. But for an everyday, normal situation, I would say use grandma and granddad. For example, I visited my grandma at the weekend. Then if you're talking about a longer time ago, maybe telling someone about your grandparents, that's when you might say, my grandmother was a nurse and my grandfather was a dentist. So like I said, less of an issue with grandparents, but do make sure to use mum and dad or mom and dad American English for everyday normal situations. You're going to sound a lot more natural that way. So anyway, the next thing is something I've covered in a couple of other videos. If you've been watching, studying, you should be able to correct a couple of things in this sentence. And well done if you said the adjective familiar means you've seen, experienced, or heard something somewhere, but maybe you're not sure where. The adjective of family is just family. And then meeting is only going to refer to work when people meet to discuss something. Here you want to use get together or maybe gathering. So we had a big family get together, big family gathering. The next thing I want to talk about is just a quick bit of pronunciation. People often say son. Make sure you're pronouncing it like the thing in the sky. Sun, sun, sun. Then people often say daughter because of that horrible spelling. Make sure you're just saying door-ter. Nice and easy. People make a similar sound when they're saying this. Don't say aunt, just say it like the negative of are. Aunt. Finally, for the last one, you need to make this schwa sound, and say uncle. So that's a few mistakes and issues people have with family. Make sure you review and you're going to sound a lot more natural. Finally today, I've just got some phrasal verbs in useful language highlighted in purple and yellow. Just pause the video and think what they mean. And well done for the first one. If you said look up to someone means admire and respect someone. Younger children often look up to their older relatives. And then take after someone, inseparable. We don't say take someone after, means to be similar to someone, either in personality or appearance. And usually this is going to be your parents. For example, I take after my mum because she's quite tall. I take after my dad because he's quite serious. And then for the next one, get on or get along well is optional. With someone, if there's an object, means you're friendly and have a good relationship. Often you're friends, but you don't have to be. I get along with my colleagues. Some I'm friends with, some not. So in this situation, Tom doesn't get on with his brother. They have a bad relationship. Next up, if you're a tight-knit family, it means you're a very close family. Nice collocation that. I think I've talked about it in another video. You can also have a tight-knit group of friends. And then for the next one, I find students know brother-in-law, mother-in-law, etc. Family members of your husband or wife. It's useful to refer them together as your in-laws. And then sadly, a lot of family members often fall out, have a big argument and stop speaking. Fall out with someone if there's an object, and you can use because of or over to talk about the reason. Hopefully after that happens, eventually people can patch things up, make things better again emotionally. Anyway, hopefully that was useful for you. You're going to avoid a mistake or sound much more natural in future. If you're watching the channel for the first time, do make sure to like and subscribe for more videos helping you to become more accurate and sound like a native speaker. Anyway, no practice and improve today, just a question for you to answer. Who did you look up to as a child? So do write your answers in the comments, guys. It's a nice bit of language and always good to practice a phrasal verb. Other than that, I'll see you for another video in the next couple of days. So until next time, see ya.